guys, Dan CG here. In this video, I'm going to teach you how to test for a specifically named item in a player's inventory. Now, I say that with giant air quotes because technically that's not possible, but we're going to be doing this by checking for the item's unique data value instead, which will kind of create the illusion of checking for the item's actual name. So what we're going to do in this video is we're going to apply status effects to a player who has a specific named item or data value in their inventory. And also, we're going to give that player access to unique areas that other players don't have access to. Now, this is not detecting if the player is holding the item in their hand. It's detecting if it's somewhere in their inventory anywhere. And then it will apply the buffs. So let's check this out. So here, the system is calibrated to give you an Amulet of Speed for 5k. So this is obviously a gold nugget, and I have 5k on me. So if I go ahead and give myself this item, I get Amulet of Speed, and I get a big message sent to myself telling me my new perks and my new access to this Chamber of Secrets. Oh my god, the Sacred Chamber, this amazing Sacred Chamber right here. So as you can see, because I have this item in my inventory anywhere, I have the speed applied to me. Now, if I was to give myself a regular nugget, and I toss this one out, this one's not named, and you'll see that it's not going to do anything. Now, again, it's not the name that matters here. It's the fact that this item right here, this has a special data value that you cannot obtain normally in the game. It has a data value of 10. These items normally have a default data value of 0. Like most items in the game, most items default at 0, unless it's something like wool, where the data values determine the color of the wool, something like that. So this creates the illusion of testing for a specifically named item because these doors will only open, this door will only open and the speed will only be applied if you have this item with this name. That's because this is the only place in the entire game to get it for a player. Like, this is a kiosk you can set up in your realm or server, and this is the only way the players can gain these attributes, is by buying this item. So that's why it's cool. And again, because it's not name-based, the player can't cheat the system and just take their regular gold nugget that they would have access to normally and rename it. So let me change my game mode to creative so I have enough experience to rename it. So here, if I rename a regular gold nugget with the data value of 0, you'll see nothing happen. So I don't have increased speed, and I definitely don't have access to this place right here. So I don't have access to this place because I don't have the correct item. Even though it's named the same thing, technically it's looking for, instead of a name, the data value. So that's pretty cool. Again, we are limited, but this is the closest we get to actually testing for a specific version of that item. So this is the closest we get. So now that I have that item, of course, I can just run right in here. So let's check out how this works. So if you want to set up a kiosk like this in your realm or server where a player could buy a special item with a special data value, then I'll show you how to do that. Let's look at the code. So before we look at the code, just a quick rule of thumb: items that when it comes to choosing items for the system, you want to choose items that don't have different data values for different versions of that item. Like mob eggs, for example. I believe they use different data values. I haven't used it. I haven't summoned one. I haven't given myself a mob egg for a while, but I'm pretty sure they have different data values. But definitely things like wool have different data values. So you don't want to really use something that the player could have. Like if you use a data value for blue wool, then it's going to affect any player that has blue wool on them. So that's not unique. You can't give yourself a unique unobtainable wool with a command. So yeah, you want to pick an item that you can give a unique attribute to, but also you got to be careful because if you give a unique data value to, a sapling, like if you give yourself a sapling, well, that wouldn't be a good example because it has different data values anyway. But let's see. I don't know. If you gave yourself like top snow, well, that's not a bad one. If you give yourself a top snow with a data value, you want to make sure that any item you give the player can't be something that they can place on the ground. Because if they place it and then break it and pick it up again, that data value resets back to 0. It loses its uniqueness. So any single item in the game that you can place and then break loses its unique data value and it reverts back to its original default data value. So you want to make sure you pick an item that does not have that property. So like, for example, gold nuggets, I can't right click them. I can't do anything with them. I can't place them accidentally like an idiot. So I can't mess it up. So that's why you want to make sure players can't mess things up and you ruin nice things, okay? So anyway, here's the system. You would obviously use an item frame and you rename the item to the cost. And even this version of the item that I used in this frame is actually a data value of 0 in case a player took it. It's not going to do anything. Here, comparator, this is going to go to a testing block. It's going to, as impulse unconditional needs redstone. We're going to test to see if the player has enough money. And this is all you need for this command. This is checking the minimum, so if they have at least 5k, it will work. If not, it will not work. So if they do have 5k, it will power this comparator. And here, we're going to have use a redstone block at max tick delay, so 4 ticks. And what that's going to do is it's going to give time for this comparator to update before these two blocks are able to check this comparator. So basically, this is an if-then statement. This is a conditional statement right here. So that's why comparators are so useful. They allow us to do conditional statements. So what this is going to do is these commands right here are test for block, then the location of that comparator. So for these, just plug in the location of your comparator. And this one's going to be checking if it's unpowered, and this one is going to be checking if it is powered. And based on whether or not it is powered or unpowered, that means the player has enough money or did not have enough money to execute the system. So if the player has enough money, this will test positive, and this will be powered on because this always gives off power when this block tests positive. That's how it works with command blocks and comparators. So because this tests positive, this one will detect, oh, yeah, this one has power, so run this positive chain and give the player whatever we're doing. And if I click the button again now, you'll see that this light will turn off because this light will update, the comparator will update as soon as this command block fails. So I'm going to fail because I don't have enough money. I have 0. Not enough credits, and it went 0. So what happened is it turned off, and then it had enough time to get over here, and when it got to these two blocks, it was able to say, oh, okay, yeah, no, it's unpowered. It's unpowered. He doesn't have enough money, everyone. Okay, so go through these codes instead. So chain conditional always active. Enter the command. You don't have to use color here. You can do whatever you want. Look up color text in Minecraft if you don't know how. So now we're going to play a negative sign with conditional at the player. Make sure you pay attention to all these properties. They have to be correct. If they're unconditional, it's broken. I'm just telling you right now. If any of these are unconditional, then bad things are going to happen. So don't do that. So here we're going to pay the amount of money, chain conditional, and the money. Now we're going to give the player this specific item. So technically speaking, because we're only giving the player with an item with a unique data value, we could just give them an item with a unique data value with the give command, and that's great and all, but we want to make sure that we give them the item with a name on it so it doesn't stack over the original item. So basically, in order to give yourself unique data value items, you would do this. So when you use the give command, the first number is actually the quantity, and the second number is data value. So 0 is a default data value. So anything I type, whether it's 1, 2, 3, 10, 20, whatever you type in, that will become the unique data value of that item from that point on. So I'll use 10 here. And basically, the one thing you have to be careful of when you're doing this, I'm going to set this in here for now. If I give myself a nugget with a unique data value, so this has a unique data value of 10, and then I also give myself a regular nugget, even though these items have different data values. So like this is a default nugget and this one has a data value of 10. When I add this, they will actually both stack over each other, and what's going to happen is they're going to inherit one of each other's data values. So they're going to just become the same. Okay, so I just got this the regular data value one. It's been added. As you can see, they both stacked over each other. So the data value 10 and data value 0 just stacked on top of each other, and I lost my speed boost. So it basically reset my other one, and both of them now have the same data value of 0. Unfortunately, this how it works. I wish it didn't mess up with like that. But so we have to make sure that this is why we have to name it, because if they did have a regular item on them, like a regular gold nugget, it would just give them that gold nugget over the other one, and it would just inherit the other data value, and it would kind of not do anything. But here, that's why we're going to name it. Again, creating that illusion that the name actually matters when it doesn't. But the reason it matters here is because these are named, they can't stack, right? Like that's a typical property of naming something. It doesn't stack with the original anymore, and that's important here for this whole system. So, okay. So hopefully you guys understand that concept. Now you understand how to let players buy this stuff. And now, why would you want to do this? Like, why not? You could tag players and do other things. But the reason this is cool is because this becomes a physical item that the player needs to have on them in their inventory in order to gain these effects. And because of this, another cool attribute to this is the player can actually trade or sell between other players. Like, they can give this item to another player at a cost, right? And then this item will, of course, instantly work for another player because it's not based on a special tag with your character. It just works because the item is giving that property to you. So how are we giving ourselves these effects? And how are we opening this door? How is this working? Well, let's go and take a look at this. This is super, super cool. And this can be used for a ton of things. And this, I don't know if this video, I don't know if a video like this even exists right now for Bedrock, honestly. Because I've never seen one. So I'm not saying there doesn't exist one, but I've never seen it. So I'm going to show you a system that will allow you to detect an item in the player's inventory. And if they have that item, apply effects. Now, that item does not have to have a unique data value. It can be a default data value of 0, which I will show you. It does not matter. But here's how this works. So this system, in a nutshell, before I look at the code, is going to check each and every player in the game one at a time by selecting a random player and then tagging them with a special tag so that the rest of these codes will target that same player. And what it's going to do is it's going to see if that player has this item that we're looking for to apply the effects. So it's going to see if this player has a gold nugget with a data value of 10. If they do have that, it's going to give them the effects, which is infinity stamina, so they can run forever. And it's also going to give them increased movement speed. So if they don't have those, if they don't have this gold nugget, this exact data value on them, well, it's going to basically skip over giving them any buffs, and it's going to remove the tag and assign to them, and then go on and check the next person in the game. And it's not, the way I've designed the system is it's not going to ever check the same player twice. So I've seen systems like this done wrong on many YouTube videos going over how to give passive item buffs to players, and the reason they all don't work in any of the videos that I've seen is because they actually just target the player. They do like /A, and they look for any player who has, say, a gold nugget with a data value of 10, and if that tests positive, which means one out of any number of players has that item, then they do the next code. They apply the effect at all players. But the problem is that means that if one player has that gold nugget on them, then every single player will receive the benefits of that gold nugget. So that's broken. That doesn't work. That's not working as intended, right? So this is to make sure that's not possible. It only ever gives the buffs to the player who has the correct item on them at all times. So, okay, let's look at this. So you need a scoreboard for the system. It's very simple, very, very, very simple. Impulse unconditional needs redstone. Just type this in. And you, of course, if you're going to use a different scoreboard, you can change the name, but you just want to include check somewhere in the name just to make it easier for yourself. You know that this is going to be checking something, checking the players for something. And then after dummy, this name right here represents how it will appear on like the scoreboard display. Okay. And then you need to make sure you add all players to that scoreboard. So you add 0 to all their scores. So repeat unconditional always active. You can put a 60 tick delay in this if you end up using this method. And then here's a command. So type in your scoreboard name and then 0. So that way it adds 0 to all the players so they become part of the scoreboard. So this command system can work for them. Now I said there's a different way you can do this. So if you have a remove offline player system, you can actually add this to the top of that. So I already did that over here. Here's the typical remove offline player system that you've seen probably a million times. I have one on my channel. You can go check it out. So we can add this command as chain unconditional always active. Again, same command. We're going to add all players to our check speed scoreboard with 0, and this is only going to run every single time a new player joins or a player leaves the game. So then these will run. So you put that command on the same side as the observer is pointing into. Okay. So that way, once the players are on the system, they can be targeted by the system. So, okay, so you can either do this or that for this command block. So that's optional between those two options. Okay, so now here, repeat unconditional always active. What's happening here is it's going to select one random player in the game, but only if they have a check score of 0, which means they have not yet been checked. So I'll show you this in a second. So make sure you apply your however you've named your system, name it correctly here. And you'll see this might be confusing, and you might not want to do this if you're new to commands, but this check speed here is not the same as this check speed. I actually added a tag that's the same exact name as the scoreboard, which might not be the smartest thing to do if it confuses you. But I understand what I'm doing here, so I'm just doing it this way because I think it streamlines things for me here. But you don't have to. So you can add any other name here, but this is going to be our temporary tag that we're using to test that player for all these different conditions, and then so we can see if they have it or don't have that item. Okay, so now we're going to clear. Chain conditional, always active. So now that we have that player with a unique tag, we're going to target them and say, okay, let's see if the player has any nuggets with a data value of 10, and let's remove none of them. And we're just going to see if they have them on them. Okay, that's what that means. And now, if they do have that item on them, this is chain conditional, always active, so this will run if the previous one ran successfully. So now we're going to apply speed for 1 second at a strength of 2, and true means no particles. So false would mean there would be particles. And then chain conditional, always active, if the previous was true, then this will also be true. So this will also then apply infinity stamina, so saturation, to the player for 1 second at a strength of 250, also removing the particles. Now the reason I'm choosing 1 second is because I want to make it so that when the player drops the item, like right now you can see I have the boost. When I drop it, you want to make sure they pretty immediately lose that buff. You don't want to do like 3, 4, 5, 10 seconds, whatever, because then when they drop this item, they will still have that buff for longer than they had the item in their inventory. And I think it's just cooler to have it feel like it matters to have this item. You don't want to lose it. Okay, so these 3 are all conditional, always active. Now right here, these 2 were unconditional, always active. So here, chain unconditional, always active, like I said, this is going to, no matter what. So even if that player that's checking does not have any of the items that are being checked for, so it can't apply any of the buffs or anything, it's going to, regardless of that fact, it's going to set that player's check score to 1, which means, okay, yeah, we checked this player. They either did have or did not have that item, and now we can add the check score of 1, which means this player has been checked, so we won't check that player again. And now, chain unconditional is active. We're going to remove check speed from all players in the game. Just in case, there should only ever be 1, but in case a player disconnected in the middle of the system, we do this so that when they reconnect again, it will be removed from them pretty quickly. Okay, so yeah, hopefully you understand what's happening here, but basically, there's no way for the system to check the same player twice, because if you didn't know this, you can't just use @r here, right? Because if you just use @random @r, what's going to happen is it could check the same player 5 to 10 times in a row. I think when you flip a quarter, it could be heads 5 times in a row, right? It might not be heads, tails, heads, tails, heads, tails. That's not how this works. So if there's 10 players in the game, it's that much more unlikely that it's going to even reach all the players in any sort of realistic time frame. So this system forces the code to check each and every single player one after another in succession without checking the same player twice. So because of that, this system can actually check 20 players in 1 second. It's that fast. So that's the maximum speed at which a command block can operate. 20 ticks in a second. So yeah, it actually checks 20 players in 1 second. So of course it would take 2 seconds to check 40 players. So again, whether or not they have the item on them, it will add that score, so they won't be checked again. And at the very beginning, you'll see right here that because of this code right here, this 0, it's only targeting a random player who has a score of 0, which means they have not been checked yet. So it's only ever checking a player who has not been checked. And once every single player has been checked, and there's no longer a player in the game with a score of 0, because everyone has been checked, what's going to happen now is the system's going to be like, oh, wait a minute, there's no one else that I can affect here. There's no one else that has a score of 0. So this comparator will actually go from a powered state to an off state, or unpowered. Right now it's flickering back and forth because it's immediately running out of players that have a score of 0 because I'm the only player here. So it's immediately saying, okay, it's setting a score of 1 at the end for me. and then it's saying, wait a minute, there's no one else here with a score of 0, so it's going to reset. It's going to reset the scores. So here, comparator into a random block with a redstone torch, and then here is repeat unconditional needs redstone, no texture delay or anything, and then enter this command right here. You're going to set their score of you can set all players' score to 0 for that scoreboard. So yeah, that works really, really flawlessly. You want to make sure this is a repeating block because impulse blocks can actually get jammed and not work here. They don't operate fast enough, so you want to make sure that you use a repeating block so it never freezes, never locks. You don't want it to lock on you. Trust me, I've done this enough times to know that impulse blocks will lock from time to time and then ruin the whole thing. So don't do that. Okay, so yeah, again, this system works incredibly well because it works very, very quickly. So if you have, no, this is an important aside, but if you have more than 20 players in your game, then you're going to want to increase the duration from 1 second to 2 seconds. And why is that? Well, that means that if you have 20 players in your game, it's going to take a full second to go through every single player, and you run the risk of technically the player's buff expiring. So you want to increase the duration to 2 seconds for every 20. So for every 20 players, you want to add 1 second. So at 20 players, 1 second is fine, but 20 more players, you want to increase the value to 2. And that way it has more time to get through all the players before your buff would expire if you did have the item. So that way your item, if you did have that item on you, it would perpetually give you that buff, and you would never lose it. So I hope that makes sense. Again, it just has to do with how fast the command operates and all that. And I hope you understand this, so that once it runs out of players to detect, because there's no more players that have not been checked, this will unpower, which will re-enable the redstone torch, which will then reset all the players back to 0, and then I can check all of them all over again. So that's what's happening. Hopefully that makes a lot of sense. And again, that's a very, very powerful system because that allows us to apply any effect that we want to any item in the game. So any item that a player has in their inventory. It does not have to be an item with a unique data value either, and I'll show you that. So anyway, how does this door work? How do we make it only target one player who has this item, this data value? Again, now that I have nothing in my inventory, it's not going to open. Well, how do we do that? Well, I'll show you. So, very, very simple. Oh, hey guys, what are you doing down here? Oh wait, yes. I cleared out this whole area, so let's fast forward. So this area is nice and clean now. Now you can make sense of what's happening down here. So this door is very simple. Like I said, if you have the item, the door will open. So the way this works is beneath the 2 pressure plates, beneath the blocks that those are on, there's a redstone dust on either side. So that redstone dust will power an impulse block that is the brains of this whole door. So we have impulse unconditional needs redstone, and we have execute at a player in a very specific coordinate, and then check that player if they have a gold nugget with a data value of 10. So we're going to not delete any items from that player. We're just going to check to see if they have that item, and again, data value 10, and not remove anything. So once we've done that, great. So what is this? How does this work right here? Well, this is the XYZ that we're starting at is right here. So we're testing for a player who is standing exactly right here to start, but you'll see that we have a dy equals 1 and a dx equals 2, and that represents how far we have to move away from our initial starting location, like how many blocks are included beyond this initial starting location. So in this case, dy equals 1 means we're going to include the initial xyz value, but also include 1 above it. So in this case, the y of 5 as well. So this coordinate, including y equals 5, will be included. So dx equals 2 means, okay, include this coordinate as well, but then move 2 spaces in the positive direction on the x-axis. So we start at 33, so we're going to go to 34 and then 35. So we'll end up at x 30 equals 35. So to see that in action, here's what that looks like. So right here, as you can see, I'm now on x equals 33, top left. And when I do dx equals 2, that's 1, 2. So we're at dx equals, that's dx equals 2, which is x equals 35. So what that actually looks like visually is it's going to only affect any player that is in this cubic rectangular area, okay? So if anyone is in that exact area, it's looking for them to see if they have a specific item. If I'm even right off of this, even a slight bit, if I'm right here, it will not trigger. I'm too far to the left, it will not trigger. So the reason it's very specific is that you want this door to close very quickly when you go in and out of this area. You don't want any players to sneak in after you, especially if this is like your secret base or something, or very important or whatever. And also, if the player did sit here, like say they went to the other side, and they were like trying to get in. If they're trying to get in and they're sitting on the pressure plate's not going to do anything. Even if you're sitting right here, it's not going to do a single thing because you're not close enough for it to detect you. The only way this pressure plate, this door will open is if you physically stand here when they stand there. And yeah, so that's how that works. Okay. But actually, it actually wouldn't even open then, because if they are already standing here, this command already tried to run and failed, and it's not repeating, so it's not going to run again until they get off of this and then get back on. But anyway, so that's beside the point. But as you can see here, once if this does execute properly, so that it means that the player does have that item, then this is the chain that will open the door. So we have set location, or chain conditional always active, set location to air. So we're going to fill location to air. So in this case, we're going to fill these 2 blocks to air. Now we'll create the illusion of opening the door. Now we're going to play sound, chain conditional always active, play sound at a certain location, and then 15 blocks away from it as well. So here we're going to plug in the value for this block right here from this bottom glass, and all players within 15 blocks of that glass will hear the door opening. You can change the radius to whatever you want. And finally, we have a very clean access granted message. Chain conditional always active. We're actually going to use a tell raw command because it's the cleanest way to issue a message command in the game. And this looks confusing, but just know that the only part of this command that you're going to change in order to change the text on screen is anything between these quotation marks right here. So leave everything else, leave the entire rest of the code as is, and just change these quotation, like anything between these quotation marks right here after this word text. So that's what you change. And then of course you can target players any which way you normally would. In this case, I'm targeting the nearest player to the middle of the bottom pane of glass, the bottom glass block. Okay, so of course that looks like this, very clean. And if we didn't use that command, if we use like the regular message or state command, this is what it looks like. It's it takes up a lot of space. So as you can see, this is the most trimmed down version of that message command. And it's very cumbersome. Like it has all these exclamation points, whispers to you, generally CG, blah, blah, blah. You don't have enough cash, bro. Like, what are you doing? There is a slight benefit to using these. If you can call it that, you can type in something like cashier, because whatever you type into this memo spot will become who is saying this message. So here, if I click it again, it says cashier, whispers to you, generally blah, blah, not a cash. And of course I could change it to, the all powerful, right? So now God can tell you you don't have enough cash, bro. So yeah, that's kind of cool for those circumstances, but outside of that, it's very cumbersome. I usually leave it blank unless there's a specific reason otherwise, but it's still very cumbersome. Or you can have very sleek, very clean. That's it. Very sleek, very clean. So that's how that looks. Okay, so the way this door closes, so once you're standing on the pressure plate, and if you had the item to open a door, this door will stay open until you get off the pressure plate. Because what's happening here is, it all has to do with this redstone torch. So because this block is powered, this redstone torch will turn off. It has nothing to do with a command block running positively or negatively. This redstone torch will treat command blocks like every other block in the game, which means it will unpower if this block gets powered. If the block that the redstone torch is on gets powered, the redstone torch will turn off. So obviously that means that while I'm standing on this and this is active and on, this will stay off the entire time. See that? So this is our command that closes the door. So this command right here, right next to this redstone torch, is impulse unconditional needs redstone and fill location glass. So that's the 2 coordinates right here. So boom, boom, turns to glass. That closes the door. And then here we have the closing door sound, chain conditional always active, and again sound, and starting at a certain XYZ value, which of course is the bottom glass again, and the radius of 15 again. So the way this works is once I get off of this, and the block this block is no longer powered, then this redstone torch can repower again and reclose this door. So it works very cleanly. It's very efficient, very efficient commanding. So that's how that works. Okay, so I can also, like I said, use any item. It doesn't have to have a data value, a unique data value. It can just be a regular default data value of 0. And to illustrate that, I'll give myself a feather. So give p feather, and 1 and 0. So just regular data value, default, right? And then here in a clear command, we're going to type in feather, of course, feather, and then that's a data value of 0, so it's not going to delete anything from us. It's just looking to see if that data value exists, which is 0. And as you can see, all I have on me is a feather, and now I have speed applied. And of course, that door would open for me as well. So this is incredibly powerful because we don't really have a whole lot of options here in Bedrock for detecting an item in a player's inventory, and this is as close as it gets to detecting a specifically named item. Again, this will make sure that it allows the realm or server to sell items to players that have unique qualities that they can't just get a regular gold nugget themselves and have those properties bestowed upon them. So this makes this item special and unique. So obviously if you're going to use the system, you want some way for players to meaningfully get them. So whether there's some sort of random chance that they can get them every now and then, or something, or some sort of system where they can buy them like this. That's how you want to trigger it. And yeah, it's very, very cool, and it gives you a lot of options. One thing I would recommend though is you want to stay clear from, like I initially thought it might be cool. Feather. Let's do slow falling or something like that. That was my thought back in the day. Very bad idea because it's just so unfun. It's so anti-fun because I guess it's up to you. You can decide what's fun. But the thing is, if the way this works, it will always apply when this item is in your inventory, and if that's always happening, where you're always getting this like a slow falling effect, it just slows down the game so much. And every time you jump, you kind of glide slowly down. To me, it gets frustrating. So certain effects you don't want to always be on. So because of that, this is not the best system for those kind of situations, those kind of effects, because there's no toggleability with the system. It's either on or off because you either have the item in your inventory or you don't. So you want to give effects that aren't intrusive and annoying. So like a low level of speed is fine, but a high level of speed is ridiculous, and you probably wouldn't want that. I don't know, maybe you would. But so that's how the system works, and that's how you can check for. Another way you can use data values to your advantage, creating the illusion of checking for a name. So thanks for your time, guys. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please like, comment, share, subscribe, do all that fun stuff. And let me know if this helped you or you learned something from this. Again, sorry it's a long video. I always try to make fast videos, and of course I show more than I can possibly go over very, very quickly. And rather than just cutting to command blocks, I'd like to give you context so you understand stuff, because the point of this is that hopefully you learn how to do this yourselves, and yeah, I want to empower you with this knowledge. So hopefully it helps. All right, thanks guys. Have a nice day.